Good morning. Welcome to today's workshop meeting. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. First, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. As today is just a workshop meeting, this is a non-voting business meeting of the governing board, and according to the Arizona Open Meeting Statutes, we are an Arizona Plan community. Even though the board does not vote during the workshop, we will provide the opportunity for cardholder comments on the topic being discussed. All comments must be directed to the chair. Those in attendance who wish to comment, please come up to the microphone, sign in, and tell us your name and rec card number. You will have 2 minutes to make your comments. Shouting from the comments from the audience is not appreciated. Please be courteous. For those watching the live event on YouTube, you may make your comments online. Please be aware that there is a 30-second delay to the broadcast, but we will address your comments at an appropriate time. At the end of the meeting, after any final director comments, card holders will have another opportunity to make comments. Thank you. With that, we will, if you are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. We do have a quorum. We are missing 2 directors today with excused absences, Director Williams and Director Piaskowski. That we will move into 2.01, approval of the April 12th minutes. If there are no changes, corrections, or additions, the minutes will stand as written. Directors? Thank you. Karen, it will stand. Thank you. 3.01, reminder, committee applications are now closed. They have been, they will be reviewed by our governing board executive assistant, Karen Ripken. She will take the next month to put them together in a spreadsheet form and have them ready for the new committee chairs as they are appointed by the new president, Jack Leary. .02, policy CO3, the standing committees of the governing board. Jack, this is yours.
Thank you, Madam President. In our last regular meeting, we approved policy number C03, which is the committee makeup policy, the makeup of the policies. This one, we have as a result of that, have a couple of other changes that became apparent that we need to make. The agenda has both the one that we approved last time as well as the proposed change. The change is in paragraph 2.2. There was, we're proposing that there be one word struck from that paragraph. The paragraph currently says, committee members may serve a maximum of 3 consecutive years on any one governing board standing committee. The change is to remove the word one, so that it will say, committee members may serve a maximum of 3 consecutive years on any governing board standing committee. The distinction there is that the original wording would only apply if you served on the same committee for 3 years. And the intent of the change is that it's three years on any committee. The other change is to add a new paragraph, 2.2.1, that describes what a period of service is. And it says, any period of partial standing committee service during a 1-year period will count as a full year of service. The intent of this is to handle those situations where committee members serve a partial year on one committee, a partial year on another committee, and they may serve, anywhere from a month to something less than that, or to an entire year. But the point is that the level of granularity that we're going to track will be at the year level rather than at any month, week, day, year type of tracking. So any partial year will count as a full year. Any
Thank you, Jack. Any questions from the directors? Director Novello.
Thank you, Madam President. A quick question on the wording of 2.2.1. I believe the intention is, again, any standing committee. We do have some special committees as well. Would it behoove us to add the word standing committee to clarify the final sentence of 2.2.1? Is it necessary, and if so, can we insert that?
Are you addressing the fact that special committees are not affected by this?
It would appear that that's the case.
That is the case. They are not affected by this.
Yeah, and is everybody okay with the wording of that final sentence? It doesn't specify, it's the only sentence that doesn't specify that it's a standing committee. That's my only question. I know it's nitpicking, but at some point it may be questioned in the future, so that if we had a special committee, it may be deemed to apply. What do you think?
And you're talking about 2.2.1?
2.2.1, the final sentence says, before serving on any committee again. Just insert the word special before committee to clarify.
Oh, okay, you're talking, that's the new 2.2.2.
I'm sorry, any
Okay,
standing committee one. Yes, the new 2.2.1, just to include.
2.2.
2.2.1, the final sentence of that paragraph reads, before serving on any committee again.
You're looking at the current version of it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought it was.
It's the second page in your packet.
That is what I'm looking at, Jack. I apologize. The number 2.2 point, whatever the number is. I only had one cup of coffee. Again, I apologize. But if you look at that final sentence of that first paragraph.
Okay, now I understand what you're saying. I don't have a problem adding that in there.
Yeah, it's a small thing, and I apologize for the. Anybody have any coffee? Thank you.
Director Schlemmer?
I just want to go through an example to make sure I understand this correct. So if, let's say, for example, I served on one of our special committees, and let's use Torch as the example. Let's say I served on Torch Committee for 1 or more years and then decided to apply to become a member of, say, Budget and Finance, and I was put on the Budget and Finance. Based on this provision, I can serve on that Budget and Finance for 3 consecutive years if I keep getting reappointed each year. My service on Torch does not apply in any way to this timeframe. Okay. Thank you.
So Director Novello, I'm going to ask you, where do you want to insert that verbiage? Because we'll have to make that correction.
Understood. Looking to the board here, or to what's being presented, 2.2.2 would read, it's a full sentence now, so after serving 3 consecutive years on any governing board standing committee, a governing board standing committee member must stand down for a 1-year period before serving on any standing committee again. So just inserting the word standing one more time.
Thank you for clarifying that.
No problem.
I understand. The way I originally understood, I thought you said the word special committee, and I was a little confused.
I believe I did. Again,
okay.
I'm going to claim coffee and so forth, but I believe I did say that. What I meant was
Okay.
standing. Thank you.
I think we all need coffee.
Thank you. It's been a long week, lots of meetings, so thank you. Any other comments from the directors regarding this? So, Jack, do you have that?
Yeah, so do I need to make a motion on this to move it to the regular meeting? To approve it?
Yeah, we'll need you to
Get a consensus?
consensus with the
Consensus to move it?
consensus with the clarification, and then we'll ask for audience
Yeah,
comments.
consensus for for the addition of the word standing in 2.2.2 at the end, and consensus to move it to the regular meeting for approval, vote, that is. Okay, I see heads nodding.
Correct. We have consensus with the, adding the word standing?
Yes, for both.
Perfect. Director Hurley?
Yes.
Thank you. We have consensus across the board, Karen. Thank you. Audience comments? Thank you.
Madam Chair, we do have an online comment.
Thank you, Director Novello. Director Schlemmer, would you like to read the online comment?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yes, this comment is from Gary Bach, 135435. Should the policy also include governing board members not being able to serve on a committee for 1 year after their governing board service is completed?
I don't believe it would go in this policy. It would go in the governing board policy package, would it not? Would we address it, this one, Director Leary?
That's a good question. I would have
Right.
to look for the appropriate place to put that, but that's a good question to ask, to look at.
Right, so let's,
I'll take that as a to-do.
correct. If you wouldn't mind, let's look and see where the appropriate place to place that would be.
Okay.
Thank you, and we'll, if we have to.
Let me read it again. He says, should the policy also include governing board members not being able to serve on a committee for 1 year after their governing board service is completed?
Director Schlemmer?
So I do have a comment. I think his suggestion is a good one. I think one of the things you want to consider is what if you have someone who was appointed to the governing board for a period of time of less than 3 years? Would they then be able to go on to a committee versus someone who served as an elected member for a 3-year term?
That's also good. I'll add that. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to 3.03, Revised General Petitioning Rules Discussion. There have been some changes to this rules policy, or rules. This is up, is it not? It is, okay. So just a couple of areas that have been revised in this rules packet. One is there was questions regarding in the heat of summer, people having to be 25 feet away. So we made an allowance that they would be able to have pop-ups to have shade. So that is one area has been added. Another one is if resident or facility staff complaints are received, you can be directed to leave the RCSCW premises by the governing board executive assistant. As requested, the matter may be directed to the governing board for further investigation at a later point in time. Further petitioning efforts, however, will not be allowed during this time period. And in the last section, by policy L04, each petitioning must be prominently display an identification tag along with the prominent identification of the candidate or ballot or political issue that is the subject of support or opposition. Because of the size and multiple locations of the RCSCW properties that are open to visitors, this information is to be provided in advance of petitioning efforts to the Governing Board Executive Assistant in Administrative Offices, Building G3. Any questions, directors, on these changes?
I just have a couple of quick typos.
Okay, Director Leary?
Under the rules in the sentence that begins by policy L04, I think where it says each petition, it should say each petitioner.
Okay.
And then in the footnote, it references guidelines. I think we changed the word to rules.
Okay. Agreed. Any other comments, directors?
Okay, I do have a comment then, as long as there's no other comments.
Okay.
We are a private, our property is private property. And if you look at these rules, the bulk of them, roughly, are rules on protecting our cardholders, our homeowners, from harassment, from arguing, from other accosting type of things. And what I wonder is, are we inviting trouble by allowing outside petitioners to come onto our property to potentially cause these problems that we then would have to deal with? So I wonder if we should just not allow outside petitioners onto our property, not invite the potential for problems, and we wouldn't have to deal with this. All we'd have to do is remove outside petitioners if they chose to effectively trespass.
I think Director Leary makes a very valid point. I know there are some larger corporations in the state of Arizona that have done this. The only point I'd like to make is that as we are coming into what can be a very contentious election year, I don't think this is a change that we can make right at this moment, but I think it's something that the board going forward should look into changing this policy.
And I agree with that.
Yeah. I think that right now for us to make the change would be setting us up for a lot of, it's Director.
This question has been asked and answered many times before. Maybe we can get Karen to weigh in on what the lawyer has told her about people petitioning on our property.
This is why she has a mic today.
Yeah, it's a big exception to the rule. So Tim, you're asking about the whole idea of petitioning in general, what Jack just brought up, right? Whether we allowed it on private property or not. Sorry, because I'm reviewing all the notes here and not half listening. So what are you asking exactly for me to weigh in on?
Jack is suggesting that we have a policy prohibiting anyone from the outside coming on our property.
Yes. So I have discussed this at length with James Hazelwood, and he said it is indeed the association's determination regarding if they want to do what he refers to as an all or nothing at all proposition regarding outside or general petitioning. Remember, the exception to this would be governing board election petitioning. We would always have that. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about general or civic petitioning. So it is possible, because we are private property, we have to either allow everybody or nobody. So that is up to the association. He doesn't really weigh in. He said there's no real right or wrong answer. I will say that over time, my experience with him has been, in the beginning, he was a little bit more liberal about inviting people in, and now he appears to be less so. And is leaning toward, basically saying, why bother? Because it's creating a lot of problems, a lot of questions. So again, it's an association decision.
Director Rhodes.
Does this include political signs as well? I know that that's a different issue, but if we're coming on to an election and we're going to be bombarded in the intersections and along the medians and with political signs.
No, nothing to do with the political signs, yeah. And which is why I'm saying that we can't step into this arena at this moment in time because we are so near the election timing. But that is something you would have to address next, put it into the next year. Do we have any other director comments? Director Hurley? No? Okay. Katie, do you want to go ahead and come to the podium? We're going to, Katie O'Grady is going to.
Just quickly, I think there was changes to Title 33, 1808 in the last year or two that does require us to allow, if it's a semi-private community area, that we allow the public to come onto, like a common area, if we allow guests or other people to come out, look at the pool from the open area, that would be considered public for purposes of that. I think we would have to allow that, but in any case, I would just review Title 33, 1808 in looking at that. And it was a very recent change to the law.
And that involves assembly, not petitioning.
So Jack, if you can look into that, Karen is thinking it evolves more around assembly. So let's really look into that and see. And that, again, that's going to be pushed off to
Yep.
next year.
Exactly. Got it.
Because of the election year. So with that, we're going to go to audience comments. So if you would give us your name and rec card number. Welcome, Nick.
Yeah, Nick Turner, 131829, and I happen to have the Arizona code open at the moment, and Katie is correct. If it is an area of your property that is normally open to visitors, then you cannot stop outsiders coming in and petitioning. But that said, going back to the document here, there is a sentence here about this is private property for your petitioning effort. It is not a right. According to the Arizona statutes, they can do it, therefore it is a right. The community can use reasonable restrictions, obviously, to make control and stop harassment. And you know, I don't think anybody has any objection to that. But it is, in fact, their right. So what you would have to do is to say that non-residents cannot walk on association property. Only residents can use that property, and then, of course, you have the ability to stop outsiders coming in because it is not normally open to visitors. A couple of other comments. One of them about the change about complaints. It still allows for malicious complaints. If a group of us do not like what you are petitioning for and don't want you collecting signatures, we can make malicious complaints. You might be following these guidelines, but if 5 people complain, according to these rules, you're going to stop them petitioning. If there are complaints, the process for resolution needs to be rapid. Otherwise, you could stop people petitioning and the governing board could decide to hold their hearing in 6 months' time. You need some time frames on that. And also the advance notice. I think if you're going to have advance notice of somebody petitioning, you need to put a time limit on that as well. Because the way it stands at the moment, I could just park in the Beardsley parking lot, tell Karen I'm going to go petitioning, get out of my car and go petitioning. You need some kind of a time frame. There's no time frame mentioned here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sharon Heddick, 106159. In the part where it says not to come within 25 feet of doorways, I know there was petitioning where we are in, where there's an overhang, where you walk through at R.H. Johnson. So are you saying that no one can walk into that area and have a table there? It doesn't it just simply says stand 25 feet back, but it doesn't state whether you can go through the breezeways. So is the breezeway considered not okay to be because that's where a lot of people were last year? And so I'm asking that it at least state the breezeway. It doesn't say anything. In addition to that, Maricopa County has control over all of the ingresses and egresses and all the sides on the boundary in the center. That's their property, so they get to decide whether or not signs can be put there. That's theirs. So we don't have any, I know, so we don't have any, just to answer that question about putting signs up, they control that, so we don't have a choice. And then also in here, you state specifically that, I have to find it again, on the second paragraph, it says, club activity work, softball games, dog parks, rec center events. What are theater works and the Stardust Theater? Those aren't really rec center events. They're their own company. Some of them are 501c3s, some of them are not, some of them are clubs, some of them are not. It doesn't specifically state that whether or not you can come in and do it when there's a show going on, for example. So if the Western Airs put on a show, are you allowed to collect signatures there? Because in the past, that's been okay as long as you're outside.
It starts with all building interiors.
Right, so that
So you
includes the
can't,
ones-
we've never been allowed to go in the interiors of the building, and
No.
that's what it's stating.
So the
But
breezeway, so
the
where you sit
outs-
outside
with-
is okay?
Outside, beyond 25 feet, correct, is acceptable,
Okay, just checking, thanks.
correct. Okay. So it sounds like there's some work to be done yet on this, Jack? So you want to go back and address this?
Yeah, I'll work with Karen to
Great.
address these.
Thank
Okay.
you. We will move this to we'll push this to the June workshop. Jack,
Yes,
is
that's
that
fine.
acceptable?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. With that, we're at 3:04, March 2024 financial review. Welcome, Cliff.
Good morning, President Vines and Governing Board and community. Happy Friday. Going to
Yay.
go through some financial results here through March. We will be presenting April financial results on Tuesday at Budget and Finance, as well as a first quarter 2024 cap trust review of our reserve fund investments. So just want to plug that meeting. And with that said, we'll get started. So again, just kind of summary of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to look at the March financials. We'll look at them compared to budget for the specific month, and then we'll look at them compared to budget for year to date. We'll also look at them year to date compared to prior year, as well as, and when we're finished looking at the operating section of the income statement, we'll move down to the capital section, and again, compared to budget and prior year. And then we'll for the month and year to date, and then we'll move into the capital expenditure, capital improvement budget, and talk about where we're at for the year. We're winding it down, it being March, actually May, but presenting March, and then we'll talk about the impact on the reserve fund. So taking a look at March, we finished the month at right at budget and the revenue side, 19,000 under budget actually, but pretty much right on budget, on a budget of roughly 3.4 million. You'll see that in a couple of sections we were favorable and unfavorable overall, right on budget though. On the expense side, had a favorable 112,000. We had a large favorability in wages and benefits for the month. We still have some open positions that are creating that favorability. We also had budgeted a $1 increase in minimum wage, and it came in at 50 cents. So we're tracking ahead of budget in wages and benefits for the year, and that should continue. As well as our health insurance renewal came in favorable. We had budgeted 15%. We came in at 5%. So, that's showing favorability in that area. But overall, 112,000 favorable, and for a total favorability to budget of 93,000 for the month, at 1.2 million for the month of March. Comparing that to prior year in March, we finished favorable by 135,000. Obviously, you know, we budgeted a lot of this, the favorability in the revenue and unfavorability in expenses. Taking that to year to date, so year to date through March, right on budget, 57,000 favorable in revenue. We had some kind of movers and shakers in here. Golf is has through March favorable almost 12,800 rounds through for the year favorable, and so of course that's driving that revenue favorability. I will say ancillary revenue, we've been kind of chasing it a little bit this year because of the closure at Grandview and not having the rental revenue there, as well as the turnover in the sports pavilion. So that's kind of impacted us on the ancillary revenue side this year. And then down in the rec and events, interest and other, we'll get that back in that category. I will say though that our events are tracking behind budget by about 70,000. Anticipated having better turnouts at some of our events, and we did a presentation on that at BNF to show what those events were. But we will have some T-bills mature in the month of June, and that will add 180,000 in interest income for us that Pete put to work in our operating cash. So that's, look forward to that. On the expense side, 317,000 favorable on the expense side. Again, talked about wages and benefits for the year. I will say though, some of these other accounts are offsetting some of those wages savings. When we look at the repairs and maintenance side, we are subcontracting about 6 positions out of our landscape department are being subcontracted to do some landscaping around our different facilities, mainly here at RH Johnson. So that's actually happening at a savings, which is great, but some of that favorability in wages and benefits is offset in repairs and maintenance. I will say though, pool supplies and equipment came in higher than we had budgeted as well in repairs and maintenance. And then looking at landscape maintenance, at 193,000, that's mostly all favorable seed prices that came in this year. So overall, 317,000 favorable on the expense side and 374,000 favorable overall through March at $763,000 inflow, cash inflow to our reserve fund. Compared to prior year, roughly 300,000 favorable to prior year on the operating cash inflow. Some of the big swings in expenses year over year, budgeted for, I will say, on the wages and benefits side, utilities, we talked about it, kind of been beating that drum all year. We did see a little bit of a decrease in that expense or the unfavorable nature of that expense in March. But year to date, 250,000 increase in utility costs this year. Okay, moving down into the capital section of the income statement, we're 614,000 favorable. This has the biggest impact on our reserve fund because everything down here impacts the reserve fund directly, does not offset operating expenses. So 174,000 for the month of March in APF fees, which is fantastic. And then looking at an unrealized gain of 214,000 in our reserve fund account. And we also took in some of that Arizona Office of Tourism funds of 210,000. We offset 5,000 of it on a loss on a piece of equipment that we had to dispose of in our capital assets that we had to write down because we didn't get the life out of it that we thought we would. But overall, 205,000 in additional funding into our reserve fund from those Arizona Office of Tourism funds, which is great. 614,000 for the month compared to prior year. Unfavorable, 60,000. We had a better return in our valuation change, in our investment fund last year. But the thing to pay attention most to up here is the APF fees being 210,000 higher. Looking at year to date, 1,826,000 favorable compared to budget, and that's being driven by the asset preservation fees as well as the unrealized gains in our investment reserve account, and then 300,000 overall in other capital section, which is again the Arizona Office of Tourism funds, and then we took in some funds as well we resold a lot of the bowling lanes that we took out, the ball returns. We were able to sell those and take that in down here, as well as golf carts that we sold and things like that. But 300,000 additional funds down in that section. Compared to prior year, 1,378,000, 861,000 in APF fees. Again, investment income, 269,000 additional in investment income. That's our interest and dividends and our reserve fund. So all good stories. Again, APF fees, we talked about it. We're about 30 ahead, 30 APF fees higher than prior year. And then the reserve fund valuation change, the performance in there is significant, and then investment income. So overall, revenues over under expenses, 2.2 million favorable to budget, and favorable to prior year by 1.677. All right, so now we're going to talk about what we use that reserve fund for, which is capital improvements. So in the budget, we had approximately $5.5 million in capital improvement budget this year. And with the POs issued and the closed projects, we're anticipating a $524,000 savings to that $5.5 million. This is the list of capital projects. The highlighted items are completed and the PO items are identified, and you can see where those savings. I might add that the $524,000 savings is after paying for a well pump at Echo Mesa, as well as some lawn bowling benches. Now, down in the allowances section, these are for unexpected or unplanned capital improvements. We had a $400,000 budget, and we have currently roughly $132,000 of unspent allowances. I will say there are some pieces of equipment and the men's room flooring and the Kuntz Spa that we've spent some of these funds on that you'll see presented in the next coming months' financial statements. But currently through March, 131,000 unspent, or 132 roughly. And then this is a detail of all those expenditures. Oh, the Kuntz Spa is in there, sorry. That's already in there, and this one. So what it's all about, the reserve fund, let's see what the impact of that is. And so we had budgeted 49%, and we're right on target with 49% for March year to date. And we anticipate that, looking forward to the annual meeting, because I think once we get the May results, I'll be reporting a projected current year through June, and I anticipate that FFB percent going up by a couple points. Yeah, so, yep. That concludes the March year-to-date financial presentation.
Thank you, Cliff. That is really good news. I look forward to that too. Any questions from the directors for Cliff? Sorry, Director Leary.
Regarding the 12,000 additional rounds in golf,
Yes.
Do we know why all of a sudden we have that? I mean, that's great that we have that. How do we repeat that?
Okay, so here's what I'll say. I'd say half of that just simply is weather. Okay, so if we look at compared to prior year, the round, so that was compared to budget, 12.7. And at the time we did the budget last year, there was a lot of consternation about all the weather events that we had, and you know, we didn't want to, you know, we didn't want to overestimate the rounds that we come in. So we budgeted 315,000 rounds. We're going to come in, we're tracking at about 330 this year, I think. So, so we'll see, but we're about 7,000 ahead of prior year.
And that's because of our Sterling courses?
Oh, the other part of your question, sorry. Yeah, you know, I mean, there's a lot of factors. I will say the weather is something that just, but it kind of feeds. You know, when you get people in a routine and they're out playing, and you don't take them off of that routine, well, it just perpetuates on itself, I think. And that's not to discount any of the things that we've done. Pat's team has done, you know, to promote and get more golf, you know, get more golf rounds and all the things that we've done. So those are all factors.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Any audience questions for our CFO? Wow. Like, you get off the hook easy on that one. So,
Thank you.
next up is 305
I guess I might as well stay up here.
with the operating budget discussion. We're going to have you stay there.
Yeah, Cliff, if you would just wait right there, because we very well may need your input on some of this.
Agree. Director Rhodes?
Oh, thank you. Actually, I want to refer to page 3, because that's the page that kind of summarizes the basic assumptions that were used in formulating the budget. It's to say that we had 9 factors here that we used is such a gross understatement, because there's so much that goes into this, that goes into the analysis and the formulation, and that goes into it, that it's really important that we look at this. I think the very first thing is that we do know that the recommendation will be that we go from 540 to 570, and that is a 5.6% increase for our member dues. The APF is projected or proposed to be increased from 5,000 to 5,200. It's kind of funny. I was at my family they were looking at houses, and they looked at a house just 2 or 3 days ago, and the realtor asked about the APF. And I said, well, the projection or the suggestion is it'll go up to 5,200. Didn't even blink. Didn't really even move the mark, you know. So I think that's probably a pretty good move on our part. Golf rounds, you just heard Cliff talk about golf rounds and the projection. Right now, the projection 320,000. I know that the golf committee, and I think they call it the golf council, looks at that, and they come up with, they're very people that really are in the know, as well as our own staff, of what our projected rounds will be. And then the golf fees and the bowling fees and the facilities rental, I don't think went up at all. And there are separate sheets that include the fees for the golf rates and the bowling rates, and I would say modest at best, the rates, the increases. Wage and performance, 3% plus a relatively complicated formula for the hourly employees. We have no control over the hourly rate. That's legislated, and it's something that we've been dealing with for quite some time. For the bottom line is that we're looking at the non-hourly increase of 3%. And then there is a formula that the state provides us for the hourly people. And that's the formula that we plugged into that. Health insurance, 5%, but we know that it's going to go up 15% next year, starting the 1st of January. Our workman's comp is going to hit us 35% for next year. That's a lot of money. So it's something, again, we don't control that. That's all done by actuaries and in industry formulas and methodologies. And our property liability has gone up by 15%. And much of that's just through appreciation and again, it's industry formulas. And then we have an overall inflation factor of about 3%. And to say, again, I want to repeat that, to say that these 9 factors, it's pretty, it really doesn't do justice to the level of effort that went into this. But I think that, and we've presented this on multiple occasions. So this is not a first time. I would say minimum, I'm guessing probably 8 or 10 times that we've had this and we've had this discussion. So there shouldn't be any surprises here. And in the interest of transparency, that's why we're talking about it again. So Cliff, is there anything you want to add to that at all?
No, other than there are no changes since the last presentation in this annual financial plan, but I think you stated it pretty well. A lot of time and energy went into this. Some of these assumptions are the result of that. Some of those were assumptions going in, and some of these were assumptions coming out.
From a very I guess, esoteric perspective of finance, looking at this, and this is my opinion, and I want to say that again, this is my opinion. I think this is a very solid budget, a budget proposal. I think that it's been very thoughtfully considered. We've debated it and looked at all of the pressure points and looked at all of the kind of the hot areas, and I think pretty much this is a very good, very viable, logical, financially sound proposed budget.
Thank you, Director Rhodes. I'm going to concur with Director Rhodes and our CFO, Cliff Swan. This, in my 3 years on the board, and I've said this many times before, but this is my 3rd budget that I've worked on, and this budget from the get-go, the staff has done an outstanding job putting this budget together. There were very, very minimal changes. This out the chute, this budget was amazing. It was so easy to work with from the get-go. And they've done a great job presenting it, and it was really easy from our point of view to work on. And so my kudos to the staff on this budget, and I appreciate working on this budget. So thank you to everybody for all the hard work that they did. And it is absolutely a very sound budget moving forward. So I don't foresee any major issues. So thank you to everybody for all the hard work that went into this. And next week, directors, any other comments? Director Hurley. Okay, Director Novello.
Thank you, Director Hurley and Madam President. Just a quick clarification, and again, just to amplify what's already been said, the transparency has been great. Whether there are folks among us who agree or disagree with some of the small items, we've been fully involved in everything, every change that's been made, so hats off to everybody. Question that I had, it's a small thing, and I know you've answered it before, but just remind me, please. On the Recreation Center rental fees page, which is 21, it says rental fees for rooms, and there's a column there for resident rentals. Are those the same, do clubs pay the same amount, or is that just for outside? So it's the same? There are a couple of changes in there over the current year, just so that we're all aware. So that that column applies to clubs as well as to residents, yes?
Yes, I believe
Okay.
they aligned both of those, the fees for both.
All right, thank you for the clarification.
And just to clarify, I want to clarify your answer as well. I did get a nod of the head from our recreation manager, Casey Huta, that yes, the answer is yes. So, Director Hurley?
Yeah, I just want to put a couple of things in perspective. I think it's great that we're favorable to APFs and we're favorable to golf rounds this year. Part of that is due to the fact that last year the board conscientiously gave feedback to the CFO that we needed to lower the bowling or the golf rounds from 330 down to 315. And we also lowered the APFs from 1,200 down to 1,010. Okay, I'm glad to see that it's only gone up to 1,100 this year, and it's only gone up on rounds to 320. So it's nice that we have excess money here coming in, but it was due to the planning of the board last year.
Excellent points, Director Hurley. Thank you. Yeah, well said. Any other comments? Director Leary?
I was just doing a quick scan of some of these items. Question, is the guard shack or the monitor shack for Palm Ridge still in this list?
I believe it is, yes.
Capital?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It is.
I was of the understanding that we removed this
We did not.
at the direction of, or at the recommendation of our previous GM. Because, not because of the cost of the shack itself, but because of the cost of staffing it.
To my knowledge, there was never actually a vote to pull it out. There was a discussion, but it was
Yeah.
never actually voted to pull it out. But the discussion was had. Director Novello, your recollection?
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry, Jack isn't done.
So if we did not formally pull it out, my question is, should we?
Director Novello.
Thank you. Just to clarify for you, Jack, and for anybody else who's listening, right now we're talking about the operating budget, number one, not the capital budget, right? So, but just to answer your question about the guard shack, no one here has weighed in, and nor is it a question for us to discuss the staffing. We're talking about a guard shack, as I recall, from budget and finance and other discussions. This guard shack would be for the existing staff that currently sits outdoors in all weather, right? There's existing staffing. It's a small number of hours. I think staff pointed out that they were concerned that this would drive a staffing request, but there's been no staffing request made nor any change that we've discussed at the governing board. That's an operations decision, but it has not come up to my remembrance.
That is correct, but I'm also going to turn it over to Director Schlemmer as he co-chairs the Properties Committee, and this originally was a request that was brought forward by the Properties Committee, and as Director Williams, who chairs the Properties Committee, is not here today, I'm going to ask Director Schlemmer to bring this forward.
Thank you. That was actually why my hand was going up. It's a great question. So the Properties Committee brought up this issue during the property tours in the fall. And as you know, we go to each of the rec center facilities and tour through them. And our concern was very simple. There is staffing for monitoring the pickleball courts that is placed outside near the courts. And they spend, I believe it is about 4 hours or so each day. And on the day we were taking our tour, the temperatures that day were going to go up into the triple digits. And the issue became, we have a staff member sitting in the heat of the day in Arizona. Most of our staff is ages similar to us. And so we were concerned that from a safety standpoint, we were putting our staff in a difficult position. I have no problem with us at some point considering a removal of this, But I would only think we would want to consider that if we know for a fact that we are not going to be using staffing at that location, because to do anything else would not address the real issue, which is a health and safety issue with regard to our staff.
At this point, I see that Carl Wilhelm has come to the mic, so I'm going to turn it over to Carl and ask him to speak on this topic.
I'd like to bring up a couple points of clarification. So you're correct that the governing board or any committee did not eliminate this. Bill Schwind, in his prior role, did not eliminate. Okay. However, as a point of clarification, due to a shortage of staff as in a monitoring area of Palm Ridge, there is no one currently in that role right now. And you will remember that at the point that we had discussions on this item, though it was an idea brought from properties, I had at least shared the expenses if we were to determine any formulation of hours beyond what we were currently doing, which is approximately 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. So currently there's no plan on staffing it, just to put that on record. And yes, there is a project that we're capable of purchasing a guard jack.
Carl, I agree with what you just said in terms of the current situation. I think there's also been some discussion about transitioning monitoring over possibly to one of the clubs or anything. From a properties perspective, I don't think that changes the original concern. Whether or not it is staff or a club member having to sit in the heat, and it's much different when you're out playing because you can take a break whenever you want. If you're there to monitor for 4 hours, you got to sit and monitor for 4 hours. So I think we still have the same health and safety concern, and that was the genesis of this request, was are we, for the safety of our staff or a club member, should we provide a facility that allows them to work in a environment that's not putting them at risk?
And if this is approved in the budget, then yes, that building will get purchased, installed, and that option will exist for us.
Okay. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And you were reading my mind because I was going to ask you to come down and speak, so thank you. I appreciate it. So I think that, Jack, does that answer your question?
It does. I was, again, scanning the list, and I see a pickleball monitor station, but it's tagged as being with R.H. Johnson. Am I reading that correctly?
Say that again. It's tagged what?
So no, this isn't the capital budget. Page 10, it says pickleball monitor station, $30,000. It's under new funding source, but it's associated with R.H. Johnson. Is that a different one? Or is that just a typo?
If I'm not mistaken, Carl, you may have to, or Cliff, you might be
Just
able
a
to.
typo.
It should be Palm Ridge?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And I
Good
think
catch.
the only reason the way it got tagged was because when we started talking about employees, then a reference was made to the R.H. Johnson tennis courts monitoring and the cost of employees, and I think that's how we start, maybe that's where that came in.
But to answer your question, Madam President, we got $30,000 tagged here, and, in the big scheme of things, $30,000, it's not a lot of money, but it is a lot of money. If we don't have a plan to use it, I haven't heard that the pickleball club is going to step up and take over monitoring. We currently don't have it staffed. I would be concerned that we're going to buy something and install it and not use it.
Correct.
So I would ask that we, based upon that we consider removing it from the budget.
Okay, we're going to have our recreation manager, Casey Huta, come to the mic and have some discussion, because I think there has been some discussion with pickleball about monitoring.
Yeah, they are currently working on a process to start this monitoring in June. So they're starting small, and they hope to kind of expand this all the way to Sands as well.
Okay,
So the vice president is the one that's in charge of it. They just had a meeting this last week to vote on Sign Up Genius for this reason.
okay.
And so they have absolutely started the process.
Oh, that's great news. Thank you, Casey. Jack?
So that is good news. Are they going to want a monitor station then at RH Johnson? Because it currently does not have one.
Well,
And we got the same consideration for,
how about we start with,
well, but if we do one, we have to consider that they're going to want the other one. If you know, the reason for safety exists at both places. So I guess, you know, this just shows that as we think things through, there could be more and more
Director Hurley?
knock-on effects.
Just a point of order, wasn't the capital budget already approved?
The capital budget was already approved,
Okay,
absolutely, so
just clarifying that.
you are 100% correct.
So this is it's an
we-
important, sorry.
Correct, and so to answer Jack's question, it is already approved, and I'm happy to hear, Casey, that you have had discussions with pickleball to know that while we have that in the budget and we're moving forward with that monitor station, that you as well are moving forward with talking to pickleball, and they are going to be having monitors. We appreciate that. Carl?
And I think we should observe over after installation, how things are going with
Correct.
what Casey referenced as a club coming to the table and actually beginning this process. And I would suggest that we at least add the duplication of this to the Sands area for conversation in September. And then by the time the end of the budget, determine if we should duplicate what we're going to do at Palm Ridge.
I think that's a great idea, Carl.
Okay.
Thank you. Jack, that'll be for you. Thank you. Because, yeah, the capital budget is approved, and we'll move forward. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. So if there are no more questions, oh, there is an online question.
Thank you, Madam President. This is from Dennis Horvath, incoming governing board member. He says, "Good morning, President Vines and directors." His rec card number 127115. I have a question, comment regarding the rental fees. RH Johnson Social Hall versus Palm Ridge. Why the difference? Also a big increase in Palm Ridge rental from 300 to 450.
Okay, what was the bulk of his question?
His
regarding-
first question was, RH Johnson Social Hall versus Palm Ridge, why the difference in the rental
Oh.
fees?
There's no difference. They're both, if you purchase, or not purchase, sorry, if you rent both halls, like full halls, it's $300.
Okay.
And I'm not sure where the 450 is coming from.
And then, yeah,
Oh.
that's the second question,
The
is a
page
big
we-
increase in Palm Ridge rental from 300 to
Oh,
450.
on this piece.
On the page that we have, Casey, the social hall east and west is 300, and Summit Hall A and B is 450. But Summit Hall A is 320 and Summit Hall B is 240, so
This is not the price sheet we use.
so we don't have a correct price sheet in our package?
Sorry, I don't, the price sheet we use is online on clubs, SCW clubs. And then it's all the way to the right, we just reformatted it.
Okay,
And
so
We'll
that's
review
okay,
this.
that's okay, we'll just,
Okay.
this is
Next
next,
year's budget.
for next, did you change it, or, no? Okay, so to answer Dennis's question, we'll let everybody know that to refer to online, and directors, apparently what we're looking at is not the correct prices. I don't understand. Karen, do you know, where did you get this price sheet?
Just for clarification, what
Cliff?
Casey is referring to is this year's rates. This is the budget for next year's rates.
For next, did you raise the prices for next year?
Okay, so
This is the official budget packet.
that's right. This is the budget packet. We have to verify the rates that are posted online to this budget packet, because I didn't budget an increase in the rates. All right,
Okay.
so I don't know why this budget packet is showing different. We have a BNF meeting on
Yep.
Tuesday.
Let's,
I'll take it to the
wanna
BNF
address
meeting,
it?
give an update on this.
okay,
Okay?
yeah, that's fine. That's great. We'll address it and you'll address it at
We did not
BNF?
budget an increase.
Okay.
So I don't know why this isn't reflecting what the prices are.
Okay, that's fine.
other
We'll
than I have to look into it.
No worries, no worries. So you'll address it at the BNF meeting and then you'll update us at the governing board meeting for those that
Yes.
don't see the BNF?
Correct, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it. And we apologize for any errors. Thank you. And now that, with that, we're going to go to audience questions, comments. Never a dull moment.
Yes, good morning. Bruce Lees, 135422. Good morning, Madam President, Governing Board, Directors. Quick question. The guard check, or whatever you call it, mentioned that it had already been approved in the budget. It was my understanding that it was proposed to be in next year's budget. Could someone clarify?
We are talking about next year's budget, which we're discussing, and that is being voted on next week on the 23rd for
Correct,
approval.
but you, members of the board, said that it had already been approved.
Well,
The vote hadn't taken place yet.
It's approved for the budget to move forward. It has not been, it was not pulled out. The question was, didn't we pull it out?
Correct.
Right.
And there had been comments during previous Budget and Finance Committee and board meetings to look at an alternative method for doing this monitoring, specifically electronic gate stations or some kind of key card that wouldn't involve the requirement to have a physical monitor on the premises. The current situation that had previously been enforced, there was a monitor 4 hours a day, 4 days a week, hence no monitor now due to staffing shortages. That barely covers the operating hours of the facility at all, being as it's open from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. If you wanted to capture all the entries and specifically monitor guest attendance that would require payment of a guest fee, then that may be an alternative method to achieve that without having to hire additional staff and incur additional expenses. I don't believe that adequate time or resources have been even dedicated by anyone on the governing board or the staff to even consider any of that alternative method of monitoring. So I would like to solicit the board to possibly explore that before, again, putting in a guard shack at Palm Ridge facility, and then now, with your comments, to add another one to Sands facility when we don't even have club tracks at Sands. So we're just looking to spend money on haphazard half monitoring that is really not going to collectively achieve the goal that we want to achieve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. Well, hello, Tom.
Hello.
Did you want to talk about the guard shack?
Well, as a matter of fact, I was on the Properties Committee when we took the tour.
Right.
And I have to echo what Alan brought forth regarding the people out there. I know that out at Beardsley, there was a monitor out there for miniature golf. So I can imagine that there needs to be accommodations for people out there, like at the tennis tower and what have you. But no, I don't want to comment on that.
And you know, it's funny, because I forgot that you were on properties, and here I just thought you were coming to
Well,
sell us the
sure,
tickets.
But as a matter of fact, I'm speaking for the Automotive Restoration Club, who is having a raffle of a dream car raffle of a 2004 Thunderbird, or 10,000 cash, or it'll be at our car show next year, February 8th. The tickets are $20 each, or 6 for $100. And by the way, tomorrow, Saturday, at the Friends of the Library book sale in the social hall, this vehicle will be out in front and tickets will be available. So if you miss buying them from me today, tomorrow you can come buy some books, but save some money to buy a raffle ticket. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Sorry, he jumped ahead as far as allowing his comment. I thought he was just going to talk solely about the guard check. So he jumped to comments. So apologize for that. If there are no more comments on the guard check or on the budget, which is the subject we were on, do we have any online comments?
We have none.
None, okay. We are going to go into director comments, and before I go to the directors, I have a couple of just things I'd like to say. First, in speaking with James Riley in CCNRs, we have an issue with a subject that is coming up, and so I just want to touch base. Some people have brought it forward, and I want people in the community to know that we are aware it is being addressed. The possibility of a new, the topic is an assisted living, if you will, facility in our community. We are addressing it. It is with our legal counsel at this time. We are awaiting an opinion, and just so everybody is aware, that is where we are at this point. So we will hope to have further information at next week's meeting, but we'll try to keep you updated as we get information. And the next thing I have, I want to give a shout out to our Kiva Bridge Club. It's kind of exciting, and often things just, go on day by day and nothing gets said. But this is an organization, but Kiva Bridge overall in the whole North American area was founded in 1937. It serves over 130,000 members every year. They're sanctioned. And they rank only the top 50 clubs in that grouping. And I would like to give a shout out to Sun City West Kiva Bridge Club, because they made the top 50 ranking, which is big. And so a big shout out to them. And they have coming up every June, they have what they call, it's a fundraiser for Alzheimer's, and it's called the Longest Day. And last June, they raised over $20,000 for this organization. And this June, they'll be playing on June 21st. And I wish them all the luck in beating last year's fundraising donations. And I hope they do better than the 20,000. So I wish you all well, and kudos to you in your top 50 ranking. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the directors. Oh, by the way, if y'all hadn't noticed, our interim GM, Ken Olson, is with us today. Ken, did you have any comments on your meeting?
No, just that I really appreciate being given the opportunity to work with staff and the board and also serve the residents. I've been a resident here for a number of years, my wife and I, so we really like Sun City West, and I think that what I've seen so far is very impressive. So thank you very much for having me here.
Of course. Thank you, Ken. Directors. Director Novello.
Another feel-good story, I guess. So I believe, Martin, you have something that you can put up on screen for us. One of our Sunset fellow neighbors, residents, homeowners, Bob Davidson, if you know him at all, he's among his many interests, he's a talented photographer. He loves sharing his photography of Sun City West locations in various online portals. But Bob also is now nationally known because what you're seeing here is a forever stamp that will go on sale in June. And Mr. Bob Davidson's photography is one of the 10 photos that were accepted and that will be printed on these stamps going forward. So United States Postal Service has recognized him, and we can all go out. We may not mail as many things as we used to, but this would be a great idea to own a piece of original art, if you will, by one of our residents. But Bob's been recognized as one of, again, 10 photos that were selected to be included in a United States Postal Service stamp that's being released in June. So I just wanted to add the board's congratulations to that. And if you do still purchase stamps for any reason, this would be a great opportunity to go out. From what I understand, the Postal Service is increasing their rates again in July. So you can go out in June and get some forever stamps with Bob's photo featured in them. So this is one of them, and this is specifically Bob's photo. I believe he entered this contest 10 years ago, so it was a long time in the making. Congratulations, Bob. That's it.
Thank you, Director Novello. And if you think you recognize the last name, you would be correct. That is previous Governing Board Director Roberta Davidson's husband, Bob. So that is, congratulations to him. Director Hurley?
No comments.
Thank you. Director Leary?
No comments.
Thank you. Director Schlemmer?
No comments.
Thank you. Director Rhodes?
No comments.
What? I'm shocked. Okay. Director Hammond?
No comment.
Okay. Wow. Okay, we're going to go to the audience. Carl?
I figured this would be a good time to get some PR out. Katie and I are working on, we're going to type this up for the community, but an update on the R.H. Johnson pool deck surface. I have been able to receive from our vendor from Texas that a positive response. I've shared that with the general manager, Cliff, and myself. And so the first round of discussions were a little ambiguous, and we sent out emails back and clean it up, and they came back with a very clear, concise letter back to us that they fully accept responsibility for a failure point in the deck, in the resin, and that they are working with us now to set a date amongst working with them to advance Palm Ridge after the budget is approved. So it's a juggling act, but they have every intention to come back here, fully replace the R.H. Johnson pool deck and replace it with new and resin that they've used in previous applications like Kuntz. So
That's great news,
I
Carl.
do get a lot of
Thank
phone
you.
calls about the conditions of the deck,
Yes.
but it's not something we've been able to put PR out due to until we understood the expense that they were going to have as a burden, and that they were going to meet terms on taking responsibility, and they're going to do that.
That's great. Thank
So-
you. That's excellent. I know you've been working diligently on that, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Phenomenal.
Sharon Heddick, 106-159. I just thought I would give you a little update about the towing of the car. Evidently, Detective Lopez sent a letter to me stating there wouldn't be any investigation at all. And then about a week and a half ago, I got another letter saying that they found some irregularities and that they are going to investigate. The investigation also involves the fact that the quote in the law says that every car at every stop sign needs to be 25 feet or more back from where it is, which kind of puts you somewhere into the part of the house, if you're on a corner lot, into your garage. So you would not be able to park in front of the house at all. So to that end, the law actually states 75 feet. It's even further away than what they originally told me to begin with, which now says that you'd be 2 cars away from where you have to park. This affects Sun City West because when you go to the Beardsley events, You're no longer allowed to park like that, the way they are. So something will have to be done with it. I'm reaching out to Senator Carroll, who lives in Sun City West, and Representative Payne to see if in the fall, we will do it over the summer, but we will work on writing something that would be like a variance for the area, because when we built this, that law is something like, was written in 1942 or something, so it doesn't apply to what was built here, and it never has, but they've never come into the property to ever do anything. They never used to do that. So whoever called on this particular issue, they accidentally found out that we weren't following directions on how we're doing our parking. So I just want people to understand that if in fact you do park 25 feet, even 25 feet, if you park next to a stop sign, at any stop sign in Sun City West, they have the right to come in and tow your car and or issue a parking ticket for over $500, and the towing will go to Tempe, and it is $535 per day that they keep the car. So if they take it on a Friday, it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and you would end up paying $1,600.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Sharon.
Good morning, Board Director, President Vines, and board members. I hate to be up here as a constant complainer, but a couple of things that I want to get out in the open again. My first and foremost concern was during the discussions on the pullouts of the budget to help possibly meet the wage increase demand, the board initially decided to pull 4 items out, including Lizard Acres, and then at a subsequent meeting after that, they reversed course and decided to leave the Lizard Acres $225,000 remodel proposal in the budget. I was just asking for some clarification on how that decision to reverse course was made and how that would benefit the community when there's not going to be an increase in space, allocation, or utilization, and it's just a matter of buying new materials, changing the configuration, and possibly meeting some ADA requirements.
Okay, so when we have pullouts, we take those, there were 4 of them, and then each item has to be voted on independently. So when we went around and we then vote on independently, the Lizard Acres was voted to stay in. It was not voted to be pulled out of the budget. And
correct, but the initial
There is-
discussions that had taken place was everyone had voted to remove it or had discussed removing it. And then I guess maybe my misinterpretation is because there was a discussion and not a vote. When the vote came, they changed course.
it's a discussion to pull it out, and when the discussion to pull it out happens, then we have to pull it out, and then the discussion happens, and we go around the horn and everybody talks, and then there's a vote, and the vote happens, and we have to vote independently for each of those items because it is capital budget.
Understood.
And on that vote, the vote was to leave it in. Now, that being said, we are looking, we don't have a crystal ball as far as the minimum wage, where that's going to go. A, if it's going to make it on the ballot. B, if it makes it on the ballot, and if it passes or it doesn't pass. What was said was, we've had discussions, and we said, at this point, schedule it as far out as you can. And the board will have an opportunity to go back and look at it and address it and say, you know, hey, if the minimum wage passes and we get hit with that roughly $800,000 come January 1, that $800,000 bill that we weren't looking at, expecting.
Correct.
Then the board going forward, but we won't know until November, and the board, come July 1, the board will go dark for July and August, and then they'll reconvene in September, and then after the November election, they can certainly go back and look after the first of the year and determine whether or not they want to
Correct.
put it on hold, they want to push it to the following year. That will be up to them.
Correct, thank you. And I was already aware of everything that you said because of my attendance at the meetings. However, you basically discounted the plan that the CFO had put forward and decided to go with a project that really bears no added benefit to the community other than the remodel itself, making it look different. But let's switch subjects if I may. I would like to propose that the board possibly postpone or push out the resurfacing over at the Palm Ridge Pool until after the work has been completed at the R.H. Johnson, and possibly a waiting period has occurred to see how, in fact, this application of the product actually lasts. Because currently the pool service is disgusting. It's falling apart, even though there have been many repairs. And I think it would just be prudent not to spend money that may already be allocated in the budget until we have proof that the product is actually functioning as it was designed. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. Ken?
Yeah, one of the responses, we've had a number of conversations about that very topic. And what we're looking at is also getting, remember, one of the issues was that they changed the resin mix. And so that was what caused the failure. We've had very good experience at Kuntz. I think it's been, what, 6, 7 years we've had that in there? 4.5, sorry. Okay, so the other thing is that there's other communities. One of the things we're also going to do is a cross-check, is to check with other communities that have put that in, get that list from them and talk with their experience for the last couple of years, even though we know they're going back to the formula that worked on all these other properties. This anomaly happened at only 2 properties here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And what they did is they used the wrong, that resin. It was kind of a slow cure type product. And they found out that it didn't actually hold up. It may have been a long cure, but it's not long lasting, let's put it that way. So right now, we have a high level of confidence that it will be good, but we're also doing a lot more checking before we would actually engage in putting it down. They've been a real stand-up company in terms of what they're doing, and have a long history in working in the Las Vegas area with a lot of the casinos. Correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, but and they've had very good success with that product. But I value that comment, and we are doing some checking. We're not going to put us into the same situation again, obviously, but we're going to be doing a lot more checking yet before that project's initiated. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Hi, Chris.
Chris Waller, 140558. I have a question about master plan, and I'm not trying to start a big,
No worries.
issue.
No worries.
I have an idea of what a master plan is in my head. Is there a format for what we expect the master plan to include? I don't mean the specifics, of course, but the format of what is a master plan? Does that exist? If not, is there anybody working on that now?
Actually, myself, Director Leary, and Ken Olson, we've been actually all week working on this, trying to come up with the strategic plan / master plan, and who will be on the committee, and regarding what type of formatting direction this is going to have.
Okay.
And we are actually working on that.
All right, great, because if you don't mind, if you can.
No, absolutely. No, please.
So in my head, when I think about, there's some discussion of that little property up against 303, or maybe a bank building or a church, and maybe one day we'd acquire that for space or for another reason. Would that be something that would exist in a master plan, so that, that type of stuff would never happen overnight, right? But that it gives you a 5-year look forward to, explore, develop, such like that.
That is absolutely something that would be in there. Director Leary?
When we talk about the master / strategic plan, if you ask 50 people what that means, you'll get 50 different responses. And one of the things that, beginning my term as president, the master plan will be a priority for us.
Okay.
I anticipate that we will do this a bit differently than we have done our committees in the past, in that we will certainly tap into our residents that we have here, expertise. We're going to look for people who have expertise in specific topical areas, so that we'll have that expertise. But I also anticipate that because we are not planners, that we will need to hire an outside company to help us with this. I mean, this is our future. We don't want to be winging this and doing a homegrown effort, in my opinion. So I've been jotting down some ideas, and the idea of, as you're talking about, buildings outside, those are areas to look at. I call that a topical area of growth.
Right.
How do we expand our footprint inside the walls here? So those are the types of things that we're considering.
All right, great. So the genesis of my question, and I think it was answered. At this point, there's nothing for me to look at. We don't have a format. It's being developed. Great. All right, thanks.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions from the audience, and we have no online questions, the next workshop is June 14th, 9 a.m. right here. Our next regular governing board meeting is next week on the 23rd here. And with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.